doing that race definitely shifted my mindset, and it started to become, well, instead of how I look, what's so cool about this is seeing what my body's actually capable of. I didn't think I could do that. I didn't think I could run a mile when I started this, and I didn't think at that point I could try to run 3 miles fast. So it really started to shift my own perspective and change my motivations to seeing what I'm actually capable of. What can this body do outside of, like I said, drinking beer and being lazy?
You are listening to the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast with your host, Eric Logan. No Gimmicks, Just Sweat is dedicated to hearing the journeys and unique stories behind an athlete's training and what drives them. Get inspired to own your life and make the impossible possible. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also, please take a few seconds to rate the show and drop me a review. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of No Gimmicks, Just Sweat. And today we're welcoming Jenna-Caer Seefried. I pronounced it correctly, right?
Pretty close in there, Jenna-Caer. But yeah, it's so great to actually be on the podcast here. You can just call me Jenna. Everyone does. It's a challenging name.
Okay. Well, I will stick with Jenna just like everyone else.
Perfect.
Thank you for coming on to the show.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm always happy to chat endurance sports and training.
Oh, yes. I love it. All right. So we're going to start with a little warm-up. And with that warm-up, it's just going to be some basic icebreaker questions that lets the listeners kind of get to know you a little bit better, as well as sometimes it allows me to learn a little bit more about you.
Perfect. Let's do it.
All right. Let's start with morning training or evening training.
You know what? I'm actually more of a middle of the day trainer. Can't give you one or the other. I don't like to get up too early, but I work from home and I usually do my training when my son's at school here. So usually about the middle of the day.
Middle of the day. That's a new answer there. Okay. All right. Cardio or strength?
Ooh, depends on the day. But for the most part, I love the cardio. The long endurance rides and runs, those are my absolute favorite. But it is so fun to switch it up and just go hard in the gym once in a while.
Nice. All right, run on the treadmill or run outside?
Oh, definitely outside. Yeah, I'm here in Canada and it's been -20 for a stretch here. And this last week I've actually been able to get outside. Okay. It makes all the difference in the world.
All right. Open water swim or swim in the pool?
Swim in the pool. I'm still not the biggest fan of open water swims, even though I do Ironmans. But yeah, I like the lane lines.
Okay. Kind of helps you that guys and stuff and a little bit of the car.
Definitely.
All right. Ride inside with or without Zwift?
Ride with Zwift, but I usually have a movie or something playing on TV to keep me entertained too. Zwift is just kind of controlling the trainer to make it a little bit more interesting with some simulated hills.
Okay. All right. Favorite segment in a triathlon? Swim, bike, or run?
Again, sometimes depends on the day, but I'd say overall the bike. I like the bike.
Okay. All right. Your favorite race distance? Sprint, Olympic, or long course?
Long course. Ironman is definitely my favorite. Just like to grind it out. A bit of a diesel engine.
All right. First thing you do after a race?
Ooh, a big burger and a beer.
Burger and a beer. Okay. Nice.
It's my go-to.
All right. Dream race to participate in?
Oh, good question. That is a really good one. You have me a little bit stumped there. I've been lucky to do a few of them. For the longest time, it was Kona, but I finally did that in 2019. So I think I'm going to have to find a new dream race to go after. Actually, you know what? Challenge Rock looks pretty incredible too.
Okay. All right. So if you could go on a run, ride, or train with any celebrity or athlete, dead or alive, who would it be?
Who would I go train with? That's a really good one. You know what? I'd really love to go try riding with Lucy Charles. She just looks like she's a ton of fun and such a badass athlete. It would be so fun just to pick her brain and go out for a ride with her.
Good choice. Good choice. All right, last one. Dream location anywhere in the world that you want to go for a run or a ride?
I did a training camp in Thailand a few years ago, and that has definitely been my favorite place I've ever trained. So I would go back there and do another camp there. Just beautiful location. The community was so nice, and it definitely got some heat adaptation in out of it.
Nice. Good, good. All right. So with every episode, we kind of go into your or the guest origin story. And when I say origin story, think of yourself as a superhero. And you have a lot of hats on,
Yeah.
Triathlete, coach, and I've also seen where you are a motorcycle racer.
Yeah. In a past life, but yeah.
So it sounds like you have a very interesting story. So let's kind of hear where that story starts.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, you know what? It's been a wild ride through health and fitness and eventually triathlon here. It's been a lot of fun. Definitely ups and downs and challenging, and it's changed my life. So, I guess where did it all start? So I never played sports as a kid. I was more the band geek, bookworm, very shy, quiet person. And it wasn't until my early 20s when it's funny, I remember this day so clearly in my mind. I was working downtown as a project manager, going out for drinks and dinners and all this fun stuff, and gaining even more weight. And I'd always been kind of chubbier in school. And one day I noticed I had stretch marks on my inner thighs just from gaining so much weight so quickly. And it was at that moment where I was like, okay, something has to change. I can't keep going down this path. And after work that day, I actually went to the nearest gym to my work and went in there and said, "Okay, like I'm looking to get into some sort of exercise program." And it just happened to be they had a weight loss competition starting the next week if you signed up for it with a trainer. And first prize was a trip to Vegas. Now, I've always been competitive. I just really sucked at anything athletic, so that never served me too well. So it was the idea of the competition of one trying to win a trip to Vegas, which would have been a blast. I'd never been. And two, just that competition element really got me motivated and excited about it. And that's kind of where my journey into health and fitness started was working at a gym. I worked with a personal trainer there and ended up losing about 30 pounds during that competition,
Okay.
which just made a drastic shift in my life because suddenly I was starting to realize my body was capable of so much more than just going and playing pool in pubs and drinking beer and being completely lethargic. So it really changed my perspective on what I was actually capable of in a really good way. From that point, I'd actually gain and lose 30 pounds every year for the next few years because how I looked wasn't motivation enough to keep me eating well and going to the gym. I'd go hard at the gym for a month, lose some weight, and then go back to, like I said, at the pub, drinking beer and playing pool. So it didn't really stick for the longest time. It wasn't until I actually ended up moving to a small town in Texas and waiting for a work visa where I was just desperate to kind of meet people and talk to other people that I decided to join a running club as a way to kind of keep the weight off and try to talk to people. And I hated every single step for the first month. Like, absolutely hated it. I'd never run a mile before, and that first day we did 3 miles, and I've never been so sore as I was after that. But it was good for me to get out of the house and try to find something else to do. And when that kind of shifted for me, it was everyone in the running club was doing this local 5K. Now, keep in mind, this is a 5K in a small town in Texas where there's not a lot of runners. Um, but I went out and did that 5K, and the competition aspect of it, once again, that seems to be the the common denominator. It just got me fired up, and I ended up winning that 5K, which again, like I said, small town Texas, not a lot of runners, so it's not as impressive as it sounds.
A win's a win.
Hey, there we go. I'll
There
take
you
it.
go.
But yeah, it was once I discovered that competitive side of it, I was kind of all in. And one thing about me is I have a very all either 100% in or not at all. So yeah, doing that race definitely shifted my mindset, and it started to become, well, instead of how I look, what's so cool about this is seeing what my body's actually capable of. I didn't think I could do that. I didn't think I could run a mile when I started this. And I didn't think at that point I could try to run 3 miles fast. So it really started to shift my own perspective and change my motivations to seeing what I'm actually capable of. What can this body do outside of, like I said, drinking beer and being lazy? Yeah. So then again, I have a bad habit of jumping all in, and about 10 weeks later did my first half marathon after I started running, which I do not recommend. And shortly after that, tried to start training for a marathon with 50, 60-mile weeks, which I definitely don't recommend. I ended up getting a pelvic stress fracture, which
Oh wow.
the doctors were pretty impressed that I managed to do that running. It is not a common injury, but when you ramp up your mileage to a ridiculous amount with no background or experience in sport, things start to crack after a while. So that was not ideal, but it was my first lesson in how to listen to your body a little bit better.
I bet. I bet.
Yeah, and that's eventually what led me to triathlon actually was I I had lost some weight again through getting into running, and I wanted to find ways to kind of keep it off, and the doctors recommended low impact sport like cycling and swimming. So I started cycling at the gym a little bit on those stationary bikes, and I swam my first ever length of a pool and thought I would absolutely drown. I stopped halfway down the lane, hanging onto the lane line, like, what is happening? I had never really had swimming lessons as a kid. I was just kind of in the water, splashing around, trying to figure out how to make forward progress. And oh my God, it was brutal at that point. But yeah, that kind of had me thinking about triathlons, and there's one triathlon in this town every year, and all the runners kind of do it for something different. And so I decided, well, I'm already kind of doing these other two. I should be able to start running again soon. I'll sign up for that race just as a fun kind of community thing because it sounds like something new and interesting, exciting, right? And so I started training for that race, and training was going really well. I got my first ever bicycle. Like that wasn't the Walmart special for 150 bucks. It was a used one off eBay, total base level kind of bike and stuff. And I was terrified of clipping into those pedals. Oh my God. I had this bike for 2 weeks before I took it outside on the road, just practicing clipping in and taking my foot out because
I think we all do.
oh,
No, when we first, that whole clipping in piece, I think we
yeah.
all have that fear.
I'm like, you want me to,
Yeah.
are you crazy? What if I fall over? So when I say I started at like no background in these sports, it was no background in these sports. It was quite the ride to get there. But yeah, eventually got out on the bike, and once again, my competitive nature took over, and I found out there was a 70.3 happening a month before that triathlon that I signed up for. So in my head, I thought I probably won't die. Let's see. I know I can run a half marathon. Let's see what happens.
Let's see, running a half marathon to gauge if you can.
Yeah. I know. I like I said, I've got a bad habit of just going for it and see what happens. So signed up for IRONMAN Buffalo Springs 70.3 is my first triathlon the month before that sprint. And it was interesting. Ended up like borrowing a wetsuit from one of the runners in my club, and my first open water swim was during the race, so had a panic attack in the water but made it through, so we're good.
Okay.
And ended up finishing the race, and it was so brutal and hard and painful but just awesome in the way of crossing that finish line. It was just like, did I just do that? Like I can't have just done that because that is insane. But it was just this sense of accomplishment, doing something that I never thought I'd be capable of. And I was completely hooked from that point on. Obsessed.
Right.
Yeah. And then, from there, it was just went and did my first Ironman about just about a year later. And that went really well. And then took a few years off to have my son. And that's when I kind of started thinking about coaching, because triathlon actually significantly changed my life, not only from the fitness and the health perspective, but just my own mindset and confidence. I started having a lot more confidence, feeling like I had more of a voice, because I started to realize that I was capable of so much more. And if I put myself out there and tried these hard things and trained for them, I could actually accomplish them. And that was something that I never thought I would be capable of. So it just shifted my perspective and had me putting myself out there more and trying different things and going after the goals I wanted. So I wanted to help others do the same thing, because it had made such a drastic difference in my life. So when I was home with my son, I started taking courses for triathlon coaching. And after having him, started getting back into the training again and started doing some mentorships with different coaches. And I've been lucky to have access to some of the best in the world through my triathlon team, MX Endurance. And I really, really wanted to help others kind of do the same thing. So I got into the coaching for triathlon specifically about 5 years ago. And I've been working as a strength and conditioning coach for about the last 10 years, because, again, that same perspective, weight loss and getting into the gym made such a drastic difference in my life. I wanted to help kind of others do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, since then, it's been pretty much all in on triathlon, kind of. Like I
Okay.
said, Ironman's my favorite distance. And I just love helping other people reach their goals, and at the same time pushing my body to see what it can do, because it's pretty cool what your body can do if you put in the time and the work and just love it.
Yes, yeah. People are so surprised that, that yes, you can run. You don't necessarily have to run a race, but you
Hmm.
can run. And then if you do decide to run a race, you can run it and finish it. And they're so excited and just happy when they find out that you can do that. It's
Definitely.
it really is mind over body.
Hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
So before you became a coach, did you have a coach when you were first starting out, or you pretty much just self-coached?
Yeah, so I actually got a coach fairly early on in my triathlon experience. I did that first race on my own.
Okay.
And then it was actually a podcast. I was listening to the Endurance Planet podcast. They had given me some advice, answered some questions over the years with Lucho and Tani there. And so I reached out to Lucho not too long after that first triathlon to help me along the journey, because I'd learned so much from them in a small period of time that helped me with that first race. I'm like, well, if I can learn that just listening to general advice from them, how much more can I learn just having someone actually guiding my training? And a big part of it was just taking the mental stress out of training, because I was
Mhm.
always questioning, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Am I doing the right things? What
Right.
I don't want to spend all this time making those mistakes or get injured again and take me out of the game for
Right.
6 months again. So
Right.
yeah, I started working with Lucho back in 2013, and yeah, he's been my coach ever since then. And he's been a really good person, just kind of learning from his way of coaching. And like I said, just taking the mental workout. So I get up, obviously I know how to coach people for triathlon and write training plans, but I don't want to think about my own training. I will focus on everyone else's. I don't want to have to put the mental energy into my own. So yeah, it's been really, really helpful to have a coach, and I just go to him and say, hey, I want to do these crazy things, get me fit for it. And he does.
Nice. Nice. So what does a day or a week of training for you look like?
Hmm. So yeah, it varies obviously week to week as we go through the periodization of training in there. Typically, so because triathlon is so involved in my job and what I do have a kind of higher volume training weeks. I'm usually around 15 to 20 hours a week. In the peak of the session or peak of the training season, right now, probably closer to kind of 14 to 17 hours. So I am a higher volume athlete. But yeah, mostly training for Ironman here. And it's just a mix of swim, bike, run. Usually have about 3 swims a week, and 3 to 5 runs, 3 to 5 bikes. It all just kind of varies depending on what part of the season we're in.
Okay. Um, you know, we everybody was affected in 2020 with the pandemic. Pretty much, everything came to a standstill. Did
Mhm.
your training come to a standstill, especially given that many races were canceled during that time?
So for me, I'll have to say, I prefer the training to the racing at times, which
Okay.
is
Okay.
kind of funny to say with my competitive nature, but I just love how I feel when I'm training well, just
Hmm.
when everything's flowing and you feel strong and you feel fit. That's a really good feeling for me. So I wasn't doing as much training as I had done in the past, especially here in Canada. We had pretty much everything canceled the last 2 years. We've had, I think, one Ironman branded event since the start of the pandemic actually go forward. So racing definitely really shut down here. But um, yeah, for the most part, I was still training fairly regularly, not with the same intent or intensity that I had in the past. And because I was spending less time, branched out and tried a few other things. I got into more modeling and acting and created a strength training app just because I was doing a lot more strength training at home and really starting to see the benefits of that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the app, and let's talk about a little bit of strength training too. Okay.
Sure.
So let's go into the app. It's the Endurance Fit app, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So what made you want to create an app knowing that there are literally hundreds upon hundreds of different apps that are available out there?
Yes, good question. So, what I found through my experience coaching and talking to other athletes is strength training is the first thing to go with endurance athletes when they get tired, whether you're a
Can you
runner,
say that again?
triathlete, cyclist.
Can you say that again? Can you say that
it's,
again?
it's the first thing they stop doing when they get tired. It's all
Yes.
about get in more miles, get in more miles. That is the
Yep.
mindset, the headspace.
I tell people it's not just me. Strength training, you have to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I find so often it's a combination of one, we all like to see the numbers add up at the end of the week to see we hit our training targets, and there's still this mentality of more is better, which to a degree can be true or can be very not true if you get yourself injured and broken down. Um, so what my motivation behind this was, like I said, I've been a strength conditioning coach for about 10 years, and that's where my fitness journey started. And I think a big reason of why I had success initially in the sport and started winning races was because I had that foundation of strength. So you're a lot more injury resistant, you're a lot more powerful, you have a better form if you have that foundation of strength and you just don't break down unless you go run stupid miles with no experience. Then you will break down regardless. um, so I have kind of more of a unique background of having that strength conditioning background, working as a strength conditioning coach for so long, and then the last 5 years as both a triathlon coach and an athlete myself. I wanted to create training programs that were easy to use for the majority of triathletes to make it simple to fit it into their training. We're not power lifters. We're not focusing on weight training. We just want to use strength training to support your triathlon training. So you don't need to be at the gym 2 to 3 hours a day.
Right.
You don't need to be at the gym 5 days a week. You don't need to overwhelm yourself trying to fit in the strength training. And I think that's where a lot of athletes go wrong is they think it has to be this big, massive time and energy commitment to see any benefits from it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my motivation behind Endurance Fit, was making an easy to use app that is specific to endurance athletes, strength training programs for runners, for cyclists, for triathletes that are made to fit into their training programs. Because, like I said, you're not trying to build huge muscle mass. You're trying to make sure that you're more injury resistant, that you have more of those fast twitch muscle fibers, that you're going to be able to run with good form and not break down at the end of your race. And that's what I wrote this training specifically for. And another aspect of it is that I wrote it periodized for your training plans. So, you don't do the same training all year round for triathlon. You usually start with the base period, get into the more specific work and into the build, and then you peak. So this strength training is written to complement that, starting with some off-season training, going into your in-season strength training, and then some peak strength training as well. And the workload changes to be able to fit into your triathlon training as well. So it just helps complement the training you're already doing. And it's not a massive, massive time commitment to do a few things that'll help just make you a little bit more injury resistant, a little bit stronger, and hopefully prevent that breakdown during your races. So that was kind of the idea behind it, just to make it easy, like having a coach or me having my own coach, taking the mental aspect out of it and just making it easy and simple to fit into what you're doing right now.
Okay. So would you say that app is, appropriate for someone who's starting out from scratch? Because I know some people, when they're trying to find those apps or, those things online, going to the magic Google website and you type stuff in and you're looking for things to, and, would you say it's something good that someone who is just starting out can benefit from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I built all of these plans with the idea that you're easing into the strength training. So we start off with a lot of activation work, a lot of just kind of learning the movements. And there are videos showing how the movements are done for everyone in there as well. And the workload starts fairly low, and then you kind of build up and progress as you go. But another aspect of the app is a community part of it. So I also offer, when people do sign up for the app, they can get free consultations with me to see how it kind of fits into their training or what program might work best for them. And then we also have an online community as well, where I'm in there every day for any questions, if you need modifications, or just need any help figuring out what works best in there. So it's definitely something that can be used anywhere from just getting started out, trying to introduce strength training to your routine, to someone who is looking to get a little bit more performance gains in there as well.
Okay. And I know your app is available on iPhone, but is it also available on Android?
Yeah, it's available on iPhone, Android, and then a progressive web app as well. So
Okay.
pretty much open to everyone there. But yeah, it's a really fun, the community we've started to grow on here. It's been a blast to just kind of hear everyone's different stories about why they get into strength training, how they've seen it benefit them. And we've also got kind of a team race calendar going now too. So we're all supporting each other in their races and giving shout outs. So it's been the community aspect of it has been a fun surprise, just how engaged it's been. And especially these times, it's always fun to connect with other endurance athletes because we are still somewhat isolated and not seeing people as often as we'd like to at times. It's fun to have that sense of community and just people who are going through the same experiences.
Right. Good. And yes, so if anybody has an opportunity that is looking for an app, check out our app. We'll probably talk about a little more at the end, kind of give another little, sales pitch to everyone. But we will go more into it near the end as well. So with the strength training, why do you think, and this is just kind of get an opinion question, why do you think that, runners, specifically runners, as well as endurance athletes, they just have, a kind of resistance to adding in strength training? They'll show how many miles they're running, how many miles they're riding, whether it's inside or outside, but you really don't hear much about just strength training.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is our own internal motivations, and then the social media aspect as well. There's a lot of, you see so-and-so is running this many miles. Okay, I should be running that many miles. Or I want to have my Strava show that I've run 100 kilometers this week, whatever. So I think runners are typically fairly motivated A-type athletes, and they like to see those numbers add up. And the bigger the numbers, the more they're running, the faster they think they're going to run, which is absolutely true to a degree if you stay healthy. And that's where I think the strength training is a very, very good tool to not only stay injury free, but there are also hormonal benefits as well to adding in strength training. But I think it's just a case of, it's fun to see those big numbers. And I've absolutely fallen victim to that as well. It's like, okay, how many miles can I get in this week? Right. And if you're taking away that 1 or 2 hours from the mileage to go strength train, then that means you're going to have a lower number at the end of the week. Now, you may be taking that time back, you may be having less miles, but if it means that you can run injury free, or if you break down less at the end of your race, at the end of the day, you're going to be farther ahead if you get that strength training in than if you just kind of do some junk miles instead. Although I do know it is fun to see those big numbers, but a lot of those junk miles could be replaced by more activation and strength work, just to make the miles you actually are running count for more.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. All right, so let's kind of go into more individualized questions now. So what's your go-to running shoe?
I am a huge fan of On Running. They
Oh,
have
okay.
been, yeah, my go-to for the last, like it's been like 4 or 5 years now. Yeah, just they have a wide range of everything from trail shoes to carbon shoes, and they just have some really fun colors too. So I enjoy them.
And you had to bring up colors.
You gotta get the fashion side of it in. Come on. If anyone's seen my pain cave, it's bright yellow or bright orange and bright green. And I love fun, bright colors. It makes me happy.
All right. So what bike do you use for your races?
I race on a Bentham one. It's kind of a funky looking bike with no down tube, but she goes really fast.
Yes. So you said she. So what's your bike's name? You know, we all name our bikes.
Yes.
We all do.
Yeah. My race bike is Venus. Yeah, I grew up around actually classic cars and motorcycles and stuff, so it was completely seen as normal to name vehicles.
Yes.
So I had to name my bike. I spend way too much time with her.
Well, you said motorcycles. Let's talk about that. I saw something in your bio that mentioned about motorcycle racing.
Yeah, that was another. So I'm a huge fan of carbon fiber and two wheels, whether with or without an engine. I'm just happy. It was, yeah, one of those things after I had lost the weight was, like I said, felt that confidence and wanted to branch out and try new things. And
Mhm.
I'd grown up around motorcycles and decided that I wanted to, yeah, learn how to ride one and get my own. And actually, once again, kind of jumped all in, but I
That seems
ended
to
up,
be a pattern. That seems to
yeah,
be a pattern. It's a good pattern. It's a good pattern.
you know what? It's been good like 90% of the time, but I'll take the times it was good. Yeah, no, so I ended up buying a motorcycle during the winter and then started riding. And about a month after I started riding, I went to the racetrack with some friends there. And one of the instructors at the track was doing a two-up ride. So basically, you hop on the back and they're going to take you around that track like you're racing it. And I was hooked after that. So I was, yeah, on the track about a month after I started riding and just had a blast with it. There's nothing like the feeling of going around a corner with your knee dragging along the pavement just on this thing with a ridiculous amount of horsepower. So I had some fun with that, doing some track days and racing on super sport motorcycles. It was a lot of fun. Would have stuck with it. Well, it was a very expensive sport and we moved away. And I thought I'd get into a cheaper sport and start a triathlon, but to my dismay, it's not that much cheaper.
Well, you're right about that. It can get
Yeah.
expensive. Endurance sports can get expensive.
Yeah. Stopped doing that because I just moved away with work and there was no tracks nearby without doing a 10-hour road trip to get there. So it's one of those things where when you're on the track, it's an incredible feeling just kind of being on that edge of, success or disaster constantly and start riding on the road. I found I was a lot more relaxed rider on the road because you'd never quite get that same high. So it just didn't feel like it was worth pushing it. So riding didn't have the same exhilaration without having that track aspect. So eventually sold my motorcycle and went all in on triathlon. I was spending way too much time riding my bicycle anyways to spend much time on a motorcycle because got entirely hooked on triathlon.
And who needs a motor on a bike anyway?
Right?
Yeah, right. Who needs a motor on a bike?
Although it's funny, I moved back home a few years ago and I
Uh-huh.
ride my bicycle on the roads I used to ride my motorcycle on now. I don't remember it being so hilly. It's a lot easier when you just flick your wrist and all of a sudden you're flying up the hill.
Well, I mean, even in a car, you get that feeling that, like, wow, it doesn't feel like this is a steep hill when I'm driving,
Right?
but running up this hill,
Whole different perspective.
yeah, whole different perspective. All right, so who or what inspires you to keep going daily?
Yeah, so this is a question I actually ask all of the athletes that I coach and work with when I start working with them, because what I found through my experience is you need to have a fairly cemented reason why you're going to put your body through this, right? Um, you need to, because training for triathlon endurance sports, it's hard work and it does take sacrificing time and energy that you could be spending doing other things. And for myself, what I found that why was just seeing what this body is capable of. It's so fun to just see that it was capable of so much more. And that's what drives me, is just to see how much stronger I can get, how much better I can get, and what I can actually do within this sport. So that's one thing that definitely keeps me engaged, keeps me excited about the hard sessions, is yeah, seeing how far I can go.
Okay. So this next question is going to kind of break down in two parts. The first part is, what is your proudest moment as an athlete? And the second part of the question is, what is your worst moment or biggest mistake you've made as an athlete?
Oh, good questions. Okay. So proudest moment, actually, that would definitely be, so I raced at the long distance world championships in Penticton a few years ago. And that was a race where I had injured my ankle like a month earlier. I hadn't been able to run much for like 3 weeks. Going to the race, was in a terrible headspace. And actually ended up coming out of the water like second from last in my age group, which is not entirely unexpected, but that was worse than I usually do in the water.
Right.
But throughout the race, I just kind of remembered why I was doing this and what I love about this sport, and started pushing. And it got to the point where it was a 3-loop run of 30 kilometers. And at 10K left to go, I had found out on the last update that I was in 4th place.
Oh, okay.
But that first was within range if I could go a little bit faster. And this was a day where it was like over 30 degrees, like almost 90 or in the 90s in there. And, you know, coming from Canada, we don't train a lot in that. But yeah, finding out at the point. So I asked my family there, well, where's third? And got a response back saying, it doesn't matter where third is, you can get first. Right. So it was like, that was that moment where I kind of shifted my mindset a little bit more. And it was like, okay, like I'm here, I'm at this point. I've already worked so hard and suffered so much and put all this time into the training. And if I can hold on and push just a little bit more, I could do something that I didn't think I was capable of. So it was at that point I started running like I had never run in my life. I ended up, getting like a half marathon PR and negative splitting that run, because I just got my head in that right headspace. Like it's sometimes so hard to go there, but it was all of a sudden, okay, no, you sacrificed for this, you've worked hard for this, just go for it. No excuses, no backing down, try to quiet that voice that's saying this is too hard, and just go for it. And yeah, I ended up winning that race. And at the finish line, my whole body seized up in cramps because I'd never run like that before. But it was one of the few times where I truly gave absolutely everything my body had to give. And that was, regardless of the result and the win, that was the most satisfying part of that race. Was I knew I left nothing out there. Like I just went to the absolute limit. And that was personally very, very satisfying for myself.
Good.
Right. And then the worst side of training was probably getting that stress fracture from doing too much too soon. It was just dumb to try to put in that many miles with no experience or real idea of what I was doing for training and stuff, and just completely ignoring all the signs my body was giving me that it was too much and pushing through anyways. So that was a very good lesson in listening to my body. And, you know, as much as we all want to feel like we are bulletproof, we are not. So
right.
It's definitely better to take those few rest days and that downtime when things feel off, and be able to keep doing what you love instead of being sidelined for months.
Yes, definitely. So what would you tell your younger self if you can go back in a time machine?
I would tell my younger self to get into sport earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I wasted a lot of time. Just like I said, I was very a shy, timid person, and it was sport that kind of changed my perspective on what I was capable of. And I wish that I had just learned that a little bit earlier, and seen all the benefits that come from sport, from the community to the confidence to the health. Yeah, I wish I had started that sooner.
Okay. So, what is a non-athletic fact about you that most people don't know about?
Oh man, I would have said the motorcycle racing, but
I had to just ask that.
You know, so yeah, last year there wasn't much racing going on, and I used to be the type of person where even sitting in a casual setting, if more than two people were looking at me as I spoke, I would go bright red and start stuttering. Very shy kind of person. So actually last year I decided, well, I don't like that about myself. So I guess a couple years ago, I started going to networking events by myself because I was forced to talk to people or just stand quietly in the corner awkwardly. So it was something I did just to kind of force myself to get out of my comfort zone. And then this last year with no racing happening, I decided to get into acting and have been shooting a few commercials and instructional videos and stuff over the last year, which has been so far outside my comfort zone, but actually it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, random whim, decide to go after it.
Nice, nice. So, Jenna, what's next for you? Are you training for anything right now? Any big races coming up?
So this year is, yeah, a little different. So for so long, my why was trying to qualify for Kona, and I did that in 2019 and raced it. And after that, I found myself a little lost because that had been a driving force for so long. Um, Now, kind of when I look forward to this next year, I am going to race another Ironman, try to get back to Kona and have a faster race there. But what's really exciting me this year is I have, hopefully with the current climate allowing, a lot of kind of travel events and kind of training camps and different types of events where it's not about the competition so much as it is about the community and connecting with people. So I'm going to race Ironman Maryland and try to have a good day there. But I think in the future I want to keep racing triathlon, but I want to start branching out and doing some different events. Look at things like ultra marathons or long distance cycling events or just cool adventure type races where I get to go explore somewhere new, try something different, and again, get a little out of my comfort zone. So I think it'll be a mix of triathlon training and just random cool events just to mix it up over the next while.
Cool, cool. And I'm hearing that a lot from a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're getting tired of whatever they're doing, they just want a new challenge.
Definitely.
Yeah, a new adventure. And that's what I kind of it's a new adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? We were so locked down for so long here. It's like, okay, need to go out and just mix it up and try something new.
Yes, yes. Well, plus once you're locked in, you start discovering new things like, oh, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Let me kind of make a note of that.
Definitely. Yeah, you know what? You got to keep life interesting.
Yes. All right. Any last words you want to share with the listeners?
No, really, you know what? Some of the best things in my life have come from just jumping all in and going for it. And I've found the best things have happened after just pushing far outside that comfort zone. If it is something that scares you and seems impossible, you know what? It's probably worth trying just because the more you put yourself in those uncomfortable positions, the more comfortable they become, the more you open up your perspective to what you're actually capable of and what you can actually do. And man, it's a wild ride when you start going down that path.
Okay. And before you go, any last words you want to say about your app, the Endurance Fit app?
Yeah, definitely. Go check out the Endurance Fit app. We've got a group on Facebook there too, just under Endurance Fit. And, you know, check it out. All of the first workouts from all the different plans are open for free if you want to go take a look around, check it out. And then there's also a free 30-day plank challenge on there, just something to get people moving and engaged and kind of getting into that strength training habit. But go give it a download. There's options there if you want to connect with me for free consultations just to ask what it's all about and how it can fit into your training. But yeah, first step, go download it. And then I'm on social media as @Jenna-Caer if you ever want to reach out for coaching or about the app or anything else there. I'm always happy to chat triathlon.
All right, Jenna, it's been great having you onto the show.
It's been my pleasure. It's so good to, connect with you. And I know we have a fair bit in common here. So it's always fun to talk about this stuff.
All right. Again, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
All right. You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast. We really appreciate everyone who tunes in each week. If you enjoyed today's show, please support us by subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember to tell your friends about the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast, so we can continue to have awesome conversations with everyday athletes just like you. Until next time, have an amazing week.